when you're able to go to the right people to help solve a puzzle quickly, you beat the competition, because if you know who to lock up and you know you don't have to spend so much time on the wrong people, you go to the right people, huge, makes all the difference.
What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Carrot Cast podcast, the podcast with a funny name but a big mission. We help thousands of real estate investors and agents grow rock-solid mindsets, do better marketing so that you can build a business of freedom and impact. I'm your host, Trevor Mock. Let's dive into today's episode. What's up, y'all? Guys, welcome back to the next episode of the Carrot Cast. And I've got an amazing topic today, and I've got a guest I'll introduce you guys to here in a second. So let me tell you a story first. Guys, the biggest thing that I probably failed in the early stage of my life, I've had some bigger failures since, but the biggest thing that I failed in the early stage of my life is I wanted to be a real estate investor and an attorney. I had this amazing professor I've talked about on the Carrot Cast before, named Ari DeGroot, and he was just passionate and he was teaching business law through how he was dealing with his real estate investments. And I go, I want to be that guy. And so I got 50% of that right, became a real estate investor. That next year in college, bought my first property, but then I completely bombed the LSAT to get into law school 2 years in a row, and didn't make it in. And I have an amazing guest today who did not bomb it, and he's one of the top attorneys in America, especially around probate. And what we're going to be talking about right now is a topic that comes up at pretty much every Carrot Camp. Okay, Carrot Camp, we have some of the top investors and agents from around the country that come in here for that event a couple times a year. And Keith Sant came in there one time, and he blew people's minds with how he was pulling out deals from probate. Now, you guys have probably heard about probate. You guys have probably heard about, there's some of the best leads or some of the best lists that you might be getting. But we're bringing Al on to talk about how, from an attorney's perspective, does probate work, but also how do you find those deals? And how do you work with attorneys like Al to potentially increase that deal flow with some of the best deals you can find out there? And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Al Nicoletti to the episode of the Carrot Cast. Man, welcome on.
Trevor, I am honored and humbled to be on the Carrot podcast. This is a huge one for me, and first time we get to connect and meet. Heard so many great things about you. Brian Driscoll connected us because this is amazing. When you're with amazing people in the real estate network, great things happen, great collaborations happen. And again, I'm honored to share my experiences, my knowledge, drop gems for you, and let's let it rip.
I love it, man. So, Al, I'm looking at your background, and guys, if you're listening to the podcast version, go to YouTube and follow our YouTube channel, subscribe so you get the whole video version of this. So, were you a student at University of Miami?
I was.
Are you just a big fan? Yeah.
Yes, I went there for music on a music scholarship. Played violin for 15 years.
That is crazy. So before we dive into the real estate stuff, I've always aspired to be a musician, and I've bought the guitar and took lessons for like 2 months, and it's sitting in my closet. And then our family bought a piano, like a big fancy keyboard, and we've been jamming on it, dude. So music to me has been an escape. I've been playing almost every day since we got it 2 weeks ago. And I absolutely love and just it inspires me when I see people like yourself who are actual legit musicians. So
thank you.
I love it, man.
You know, it plays into music and real estate kind of play into one another because of the communities that I was a part of in music. And I feel the same way now with real estate. So it's really interesting how the two kind of meshed and the two worlds kind of came back to life. And that's why that violin's up there, and I love it.
That's cool. I love it. Well, dude, Al, why don't you introduce yourself for everyone in the Carrot Cast audience who hasn't heard of you? And guys, we're going to give you some information to connect with Al. I don't make any money from this. I just want to introduce you guys to great resources. Like Al had mentioned, the introduction came from Brian Driscoll, one of our partners here at Carrot. If you guys go in the marketplace and you want to get great Google pay-per-click traffic management or SEO, guys, go or Facebook ads, go into the marketplace, find motivated leads. They're our top vendor in there, and they're doing amazing work. So Al, who are you? Where do you live? What type of law do you practice? And I'd like you to kind of dive into how you got into law and real estate in the first place. Then we're going to talk about the probate side.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting story. So I'm Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and I am doing all types of probates all over the state of Florida, all the weird and different things in the title world. I'm like the title fixer when it comes to the crazy stuff in Florida, but absolutely been crushing it in probate. I found a great system, a great model that has worked. But the story of how I even got here is wild. Was a musician for 15 years and then became lawyer. And now I'm lawyer, marketer, podcaster, influencer out there. So that the story and how it happened is wild. I in school, we were just doing music and there was no law on my mind at all. I was never thought to be a lawyer. I wasn't that kind of kid in school. And it wasn't until the end of college, I had to make a decision about what was I going to do? Where was I going to go? Was it going to be med school? Was it going to be law school? And I had the bright idea of being able to say, well, if I didn't want to be a musician my whole life, maybe I want to take the law side and the music side and maybe do entertainment law, right? So I said, you know what? Let's go to law school. Let's see what happens. Go to law school, realize that entertainment law is a super tight world of you got to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. And I said, you know what? It was too niche down for me in that world. So I wanted to find something that was going to be practicable and something I really enjoyed, and really found my groove in the real estate side in law school later on, and passed the bar, took my first job. And at that time I was really getting into foreclosure defense. And that's how it all started for me as an attorney, was the foreclosure side, the litigation side. Hadn't even dabbled in probate yet, and was doing that for about 2 years. And all of a sudden, one of my best friends came down to Jacksonville. And I tell this story all the time because it's fascinating how it all started. He comes down to Jacksonville. We're all hanging out. Right before he leaves, he's like, hey man, I got this niche idea that you probably should take a look at, and take a look at what this is. And I'm like, all right, what is it? He's like, there are tons of properties just sitting in Florida that have never gone through probate, waiting. Those people are waiting for the right pitch, the right lawyer to come along and help transition the house from the person that died to the heirs. And I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. He's like, there's thousands of them. Well, at the time, nothing really clicked with me, Trevor. I did some research. I still remember I was by the pool. It was springtime. I was like researching all the lists and everything, and nothing clicked at the time. Year goes by. He comes back down to visit. Right before he leaves, same moment, goes, so did you find out anything about the probate world? And I was like, look, man, I still don't get it. And he sat down. He said, look, showed it to me, and just thousands and thousands and thousands of properties hadn't gone through probate. And at that point, the light bulb went on. That's when I went like 400 miles an hour. And I totally understood that there was an untapped world of, there was a problem, there's a solution, and we could be the problem solvers to helping a lot of these sellers and people that may want to buy it and help the communities, spruce up the communities, come in and do the probate, get it done, close the deal, wait until the end to get paid, and make it something. So I tried explaining it to so many people. Man, nothing clicked for about 6 months to a year. Moved up to Jacksonville, and we worked at the same firm together, me and my best friend. We worked there. And he said, if you did what you did in Miami and Jacksonville, you'd blow it up. And I thought, yeah, I mean, we'll see. Fast forward 3 years later, multiple speaking events, being on shows, being on podcasts, explaining this world. I've done over 250 probates in the last 3 years, and I've seen everything from 1 probate to 6 probates, from deaths going back to 1950. And I've seen so many things that I could share stories and stories on, but it transformed from not just probate, but to content creator, to sharing the stories on all the mediums, right? Podcasts and videos. And it's not even just the lawyer side anymore. It's just, it's the marketer, it's the podcaster. And I just love telling all of these things because we can all solve problems that are very, very messy.
Dude, I love the transformation throughout as well, and you're turning into content. And guys, whether you're a real estate agent listening to this or an investor, a lot of people will come to me as an investor agent. And they go, man, I'm just an investor. How am I going to create video content, guys? And this isn't anything bad on attorneys, Al. Guys, attorneys, there's not a lot more things that are for most people like boring than law, right? I think law is pretty fascinating, but guys, everybody on this call can do great content. You find your niche, you go out there and build an expertise, and you go teach it, just like Al's doing on this. So, Al, let's dive into the probate side. So, probably the majority of our investor user base knows what a probate is. Many have done a probate deal. A lot of our agents may know as well. But for those who don't know, what is a probate? Let's define what a probate is. Then we're going to kind of dive into, guys, how do we go find the probate deals? Because when we talk to our clients, a lot of the best deals tend to be a probate deal. If you're doing outbound marketing, if you're doing the inbound marketing, we get a lot of the deals that do come through from someone who inherited a house or it's in probate right now, and they're potentially ultimately the decision maker on it. But Al, what is probate?
Very simply, somebody owned real estate, and we'll stick with the real estate side because we can get into bank accounts and cars and all that, but somebody owned the real estate and it's in their name. Well, in Florida, when they die, in order to properly distribute the assets to the heirs, whether will or no will, probate is the process that we file paperwork in court that transfers that title from the deceased to the heirs, so that now, once the heirs are on title, they have authority to sell it, to convey it, transfer it, refinance, do whatever with the property. But it's simply the paperwork filing of moving that asset from what that person owned to the true heirs, the end.
Okay. So let's say there's like you were saying, thousands of probate deals in Florida. And there's a lot in every state. How does an investor or an agent be able to find where those are? How do they contact the sellers or the heirs to even potentially make a deal and solve their problem?
Some of the simplest ways are pre-foreclosures, right? So why is the property in pre-foreclosure? Well, they forgot to pay. They can't pay, they're dead. So if they were on their last payment and they die, what's the bank going to do? They want their money, even if it's a $10,000 balance, they're still going to bring a foreclosure. So there could be a ton of equity in that deal. But what happens? The paperwork gets filed in the court. And if you go through those records, banks have to go through the process of finding people. And if you follow the paper trail in the courthouse, in the docket, you'll see that they may name heirs. They may find heirs. They appoint people like guardian ad litems to try to find who these people are. So free resource out there are the court records. Public records are free in Florida. You can find so many things in Florida, and pre-foreclosures, I'd say, is definitely one of the top ones. And then you got the tax deed auction sales. Pre-foreclosures and tax deed auctions are great because they can be calls to action. If that seller doesn't do something and they take care of the probate, they will lose it. They may make less on the auction sale than an investor coming in to pay the cash or through financing. So tax deed auctions are really interesting because in Florida, there's not like a motion to stop tax deed sale. So the only way that tax deed sales coming off the auction block is the back taxes get paid. Well, investors doesn't want to pay those back taxes to save the property if they're not going to get the deal. So a lot of investors will go to the heirs. If it's in a state, they'll go to the heirs and say, hey, we'll lock it up under contract. If we get everybody under contract, maybe we can get the probate done. All right, even if we can't get the probate done, do we have everybody? Yes, we have everybody. Pay off the taxes, do the probate after the tax deed sale comes off the auction block. And those can be great because they're in a bind. They got to do something. Those are crazy ones out there.
So when you were growing your business on the probate side, were you doing the same thing to create business as an attorney? You were looking through those lists and then reaching out to the sellers, or how were you finding the heirs?
So I wasn't doing it on the seller side, where more of my angle was educating the investor on,
Gotcha.
hey,
Cool.
there's an opportunity here. This is where you potentially can find it, right? So another golden nugget, your whole audience is going to love it. Another golden nugget is when death certificates get recorded, it changes the name in the property appraiser in Florida. And what used to be John Smith may change it to John Smith Estate. Well, just because it's John Smith Estate doesn't mean that a probate's ever been done, or maybe it's going through probate, or maybe probate's already done. So you have so many motivations in that kind of lead where you find a death certificate's been recorded. And with death certificates, those can be a great lead source, because if you pull it on it, it'll say informant, and an informant is somebody that filled it out, and they're usually alive. So they could be a son, a daughter, a relative, and that could be your next lead if your skip tracing just falls apart. Your programs don't pull who you want to look it up. Those are the best records right there.
Gotcha. And guys, these types of deals, and what I want to kind of hammer in here, number one, as a real estate agent, a lot of this is probably really new if you're an agent listening to this, right? Because oftentimes the listings come from the traditional places, your sphere. You know, that's what a lot of people say. Hey, work your sphere, or referrals, or it could be coming from Carrot. But I want you guys and gals to look at these as potential listings as well. Or if you're a hybrid agent or investor, that's even better, because you can go there, approach the seller. We'll talk here in a bit how you find those lists and things like that, the records. But you can approach that seller. We'll talk about how to approach that heir. You can and then you can take it down as an investor, and then you as an agent can list it on the market after you renovate it or whatever you want to do. There's so many ways that you can approach this. Or if you're an agent and you just want to do the pure agent side of it, work with an investor. And it's like the best thing in the world if you can bring those investors leads, or vice versa. The investor is going to bring you leads, so everyone wins. So Al, when someone goes through, they go into public records, or they use a list source where they can go out there and pull those lists, how do they then reach out to the heirs? Are they picking up the phone? Are they knocking on doors? Are they sending direct mail? Kind of what's working best to connect with them?
So it's interesting. Great question. What I've heard and seen on the land side is direct mail. Something about direct mail when it comes to land works. I don't know if it's because they're out of state, and maybe I don't know. Maybe out of state people just like more direct mail. But direct mail has been huge. Cold calling is still huge for single family residential. I mean, probably same with land, but I'd say those have been the top methods. One of the more interesting ones I've seen is the sticky note, where if you don't know if somebody's in there or not, you leave the sticky note there and say, "Hey, my name is so and so. I just wanted to drop by and see if you're interested. Call me." And if you go by the next day, it's off. Somebody's there. If it's not, that's another lead source. But I mean, just the same systems that you've seen from many investors seem to be working on the probate side. The only kicker is, where are the heirs, right? How do you find those heirs? What are the sources? And that's where you just really want to work with the right skip tracing software to try to pull the most accurate lineage you can.
Okay. So with that side of things, Al, so let's say someone pulls up a skip tracing software, and there's a lot of them, guys. Just go in the Facebook groups and ask the investors or agents in there who they use. You guys there's a lot of them. And they would put in that list of heirs, and you mentioned a couple of ways to find them. It could be on the actual death certificate. It could be in other spots. Are there any other ways to find the heirs that you have known of that you didn't mention already that are good?
Yeah. So and this could potentially lead into a great story.
Cool.
Yeah. One of them is a genealogist. And a lot of people would be like, a genealogist, like, Ancestry, the tree, the thing online. I'm talking about like an actual licensed genealogist that performs a full search, that would write an affidavit and appear in court and testify. It was crazy. So we had this one case that came in my office, and the investor, he was like, "Yeah, I just drove back and forth by that property every day. I lived right by the property." And he said he'd been driving by it for a year. And he said, "You know what? I want to go see it. I want to see what's going on. Gets out of the car, looks around, totally empty, no vacant, nobody's in there. So he was like, all right, I'm going to go do some research on this. So they do some research and they find out that the lady that owned the property, she died. And he said, well, all right, I got to go see Al and find out, which way do we go? So I'm talking to the investor and I'm like, look, if you perform your skip trace, try an independent investigator. They're a little expensive, or try Skip Matrix or Clear Skip. A lot of these companies out there that they'll perform on the cheaper side of the skip trace. And then I said, why don't you try the genealogist? He's like, genealogist, really? I said, yeah. See how much he charges. It's really not that bad. And what he'll do is he'll find them. If anybody can find them, the genealogist will. So on this case, the genealogist did a full skip of the lady that owned the property. And you know what, Trevor? He found no heirs.
Really?
None.
Wow.
Zero. And we were like, whoa, we can't believe it. And that's when the genealogist called me and the investor. He picked up the phone and said, hey, guys, I found nobody. And we said, okay, well, what's next? And he said, well, here's the thing. She had a predeceased spouse. So in Florida, we have to go down his line.
Oh, gotcha.
So he did a full skip of his line, and it went all the way back to Germany. And I even titled my PowerPoint slide "The No Heir German." It was a crazy story. Come to find out that the guy had no spouse, no children, no parents, and he had 4 predeceased brothers and sisters who had 5 nieces and nephews. And you know what? Surprise, they were alive. And they had no idea that they were inheriting this property. And you know where the story goes. As soon as they found out, they wanted top dollar all the money.
Oh, yeah.
But wild story of couldn't find anybody till we found all of them. And, there were so many strategies and wild creative methods that were going through my head about how to lock up that deal if you can't get all of them and everything. But those are the resources that really can elevate you from I can't find anybody to I'm going to put some juice into this and see if we can make it work. And you know what? I think he almost got it, but it's just great, these resources.
And guys, as you guys are listening to this, some of you guys are probably going, man, that sounds like work, right? I want to give you guys an example. So I was talking with one of our clients. He was in our office a couple of weeks ago, a Portland client, and he's been coming down to Roseburg. So it's about a 3-hour drive south of Portland to visit with this gal and a client. And he's done it twice in the past month. And he hits me up and he's like, hey, Trevor, can I pop by the office? And he told me the story. And so he was doing direct mail, and he ended up finding someone who had inherited some homes. One of them inherited 4 properties up in Portland, but they lived here in Roseburg, and it took them a while to skip trace and find them here because it wasn't the kid. I think it was some other relationship. It was like, don't quote me on this exactly, but it was like the kid's girlfriend or the kid's ex-wife, or like, it was something weird, but that was the person who was next in line for it. And he's been working on the deal for over a year. So as you hear Al talking about the steps that go to it, and you hear this one from this client story, guys, here's the deal though. Oftentimes those deals are really, really big deals. Okay, because the heirs could be in different states and they just want to be done with it. And you're serving them well by solving their problem and putting money in their pocket that would never have been there, or it wasn't theirs in the first place. When we had purchased a vacation home in 2014, it was a probate deal. The people had passed away. It was a second home. There were 3 kids in 3 different states, all lived out of state, and they were paying a $400 a month HOA fee on it for about 4 to 5, 6 months. It went through the probate process, but they had it still sitting there, and we ended up buying it at a massive discount. And they were pumped, right? And so here's the deal with it, guys. Some of the biggest deals can come from this because it's a distressed situation. And also, as an investor or an agent, you're really serving them well, because in some of these cases like that one there, those nieces and nephews never would have got a dime from that if it wasn't for the investor's efforts, Al's efforts, and the genealogy. they never would have got a dime from it. The property would have been sitting there. It would have started to grow massive weeds. And you guys see these properties around town. Those properties, as an agent, you could never sell. They're actually dragging the value of the homes around them down that you're trying to sell. And they're like, well, shoot, I don't want to move in next to this house. Guys, you as an agent or an investor can save that house, elevate the value of the entire market, of the entire area, by taking these houses and actually finding those heirs and doing deals and solving problems. So this is where it gets real. If you guys want to really step into a competitive market and win deals, you do the deals other people aren't willing to do because it takes a little more work and they're big.
You know, Trevor, you're so spot on about sometimes the messiest deals are the biggest deals. And one of the ones I saw recently was an investor that bought a piece of property from heirs. And I'll tell the story about how no lawyers were able to figure it out. Buys it for $10,000, flips it for $200K. So
Sheesh.
you're talking about, there was a piece of property just sitting in South Florida, and it was about to go to tax deed auction. Everybody thought there was one person on the title to the property. And that's where, you know, I have so much content and stuff that people could check out about due diligence and how you find things. And the first thing I thought was, okay, how long has this property been there? And you're talking years. And I thought, one person on one piece of property for that many years, no way. So I said, pull title, get the title commitment. Title commitment comes back, 8 people on title. And I thought,
gotcha.
Okay, 8 people, how many are alive? And we found out 2. Said, okay, so 6 people are dead, all on title. You know, are we about to do 6 probates on one property? And
Gotcha.
yeah, it was wild. And the way that the flow of how we had to do a full family tree was, it was lopsided. It was like 50% was one guy and the other 50% were the other 5 people. So we had to figure out a way, how do we work through this whole scenario with people that, I mean, it was years old. And we had to work through people that had death certificates from 1950, 1970, 1990, super long ago. And we worked through the whole puzzle. There were 3 at the end of the day, 3 direct heirs. They all were on board. We had to go through the whole system, filed all the paperwork, delineated everything, laid the record. And the only one we had to deal with at the end was the other 50%, which was interesting because we really had no heir. Really was no heir. All the heirs were post deceased, and we were still able to do it and solve that thing in 6 months, 6 probates. And I'll never forget. I'm in Miami, and I'm driving to my parents' place, and I'm talking to the heir's husband, and he said something to me. He says, "Are you really going to figure this out?" I said, "Yeah." I said, I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, let me tell you the story." He said, "We went to 3 to 4 other title companies, and every single one," exactly the way he said it. He said, every single one said, "Oh, yeah. No problem. We got it." And then 3 months later, there's an issue. And every single one came back and said that. And this time we solved it, figured it out. Investor made a killing, $200,000 net. I mean, wacky deal, huge spread. Who finds that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Yep. Those aren't ones you come by often. Dude, one thing that pops up in my mind, Al, is I know a lot of investors who work directly with attorneys who do a lot of probate, right? And of course, probate laws are different in all the states. And so would you have any advice for someone who's an investor and they can close deals or an agent, right? How would an investor or an agent approach an attorney who might already be working on probate deals and start to build that relationship?
Great question. This has actually taken me a while to figure out the answer to, and I think I was in the sub 2 group community on a live, and it really on Pace's group, it really hit me. And see, in our world, I'm like the problem solver, so all the deals that really come to me are locked up, under contract, totally different world. Right. But sometimes lawyers may have been practicing 30, 40 years, picking up organic leads, or maybe you're thinking, okay, Al Nicoletti's in Florida, but what about my state? How do we find an Al Nicoletti out of state? And the best thing I thought of was find attorneys maybe that are in a local RIA or that have investor friendly title companies, and talk to them and say, how much of your lead flow or how much of your flow is probate? And find out like what percentage of their business is probate, right? Because you ask me, I'm going to tell you, no, I do probate, right? A lot of attorneys dabble in it. They say they do it, they dabble, right? So first thing you're thinking is how much of their business in their law firm is probate. Second thing, what percentage of investors do they work with? Do they work with 80% of investors or 30? Because if they say 30 and they're like, I would not even go there, because you have no idea what kind of system and processes they're going to have. And so those are the first things you're thinking. And other states and lead sources, I mean, there's public records out there where once they file a probate, it's all out in the public record of either who the heirs are, who the attorneys are. But I would say also, build the relationship with people, build the relationship with attorneys, and not just attorneys, but all the title companies and other people around you. I think sometimes we have the mindset of we make the connection, we shake hands, we have the expectation the business is done right then and there. It's like, no, the business happens and it matures over time and through relationship and trust. And that's the key. Those are the key elements, not just the gift basket, the fruit gift basket, or some of the other creative things I've heard people do. It's build trust, build relationships. Those are the keys, and asking the right questions is huge.
Cool. I love it, dude. So you work with so many investors when they're doing that direct mail or they're doing the probate and they get a hold of the heir. What are some of the things that they might say to that heir to build that trust and to make sure that they know that they can serve them? Because they might be getting other messages or notes from other people as well. Do you know what your clients are doing to most successfully lock down those deals, build that trust, and do the probate deals?
I think it's the communication, the speed and efficiency and confidence, all of it. I think it's the whole package. I think you have to have the confidence to be able to say, hold on a second. Nope, we got a team. There's a problem. We are problem solvers, right? Come with the mindset of, yeah, there's a problem, but what's the solution? And at the end of the day, if the money doesn't make sense, fine, but there's going to be a solution. So you frame your mindset to, there is a solution to the problem. So confidence is huge, and knowing where to go, the right team, knowing who to go to plays a role, because you want to be able to say, nope, you go to him for this, you go there for that. We got to do lien reductions, you go there. And I think it's the speed too. And that's why I built out multiple PowerPoints for, on the high level masterminds. And on one of them, I talk about solving puzzles quickly. And when you're able to go to the right people to help solve a puzzle quickly, you beat the competition, because if you know who to lock up and you don't have to spend so much time on the wrong people, you go to the right people, huge, makes all the difference.
Dude, so in that case there, let's kind of talk some of the details of how people can work through some of these complex issues. What are some of the common things that pop up in those probate deals that kind of blow up the deals for some people, but you guys are able to work through them? What are top common issues with probates?
Love it. Trevor, you're going to love this story. So had a great one that came up lately, and I call it the checkmate. So, some of the things that come up are mom dies, 5 kids, and one doesn't want to sign the contract, right? All the others want to sign, it's been sitting there, it's rotting away, but there's just that one that, no, we can get top dollar for it, And so there was one investor that came across this deal where there were 6 kids on the case. And I remember I was like, all right, when they die, how many are there? All right, everybody goes under contract. So he goes to get the 5 under contract, and the 6th one says they don't want to sign anything. They don't want to sell. Okay. So in our world of law, we're thinking, all right, probate, and then there's something called partition. And I was like, before we get there, how can we come up with something creative and strategize around maybe forcing the hand of number 6 on that deal? So I remember I think the file had sat around for about a couple days and molded through my mind. Then I talked to the client and I said, I got a question for you. In the world of Florida, there's something called homestead. And when somebody dies and it's homestead property, the theory is the title moves directly to all heirs. So I said, let me ask you, ma'am, was this where mom lived and resided? And she goes, well, no, she didn't live and reside there at the time of her death. And I said, really? She said, nope, she moved somewhere else. And that's when in my head, I thought of a crazy strategy of, well, if that's the case, even if he doesn't want to sign, we can still do the probate, file the right motion, serve him, and get the court order to the judge to get the property sold. So we went through all of it with the heir, the investor. And I was like, here's what happens. Let him know that if he doesn't sign that contract, tough luck, we're still moving forward. Next day, I get a phone call from the client. She goes, he's signing the contract. And I said, well, there you go. You pinned him in a situation he just couldn't get out of. You forced his hand. And when we forced his hand, he signed the contract. We already filed the probate. We're getting the court orders. We found a solution and a creative way. And that's why I call it checkmate, because he had no other route to go. It was going to get sold. Good luck.
Dude, the last couple of questions I've got here, Al. So you mentioned the team. If you're working with an experienced investor or an agent who's wanting to help with the probates, obviously an experienced attorney is a part of that team. But what are the other parts of that team that might be really valuable that someone would need to gather in order to really do probates well?
Great question. I think having the right title company is really, really big, right? Not every title company runs through probates. And if you don't have the right title company that's able to perform a lien search of who the heirs are before the probate's done, that could be a deal killer, right? So what happens? Mom dies, 5 kids, and let's just say number 5, he's got an IRS lien of $1 million, but you don't know that until probate's done, and then it sticks. So working with title companies that are proactive and think ahead and say, well, if we do this, then this, how do we prevent that? Huge. And ones that understand documentation on probate, like whether certified copies and things getting recorded. I just see so many title companies that either never gone through it or, they don't know the language and the lingo. And it's just because they just deal with normal transactions. Having the right genealogist, having the right independent investigator, having the right skip tracing tools is going to play a huge role. And also I recommend this because you never know, it may come up in any deal. Having another investor that's seen these kinds of deals, that's seen the messy and the weird and have some big pockets or financing to fund the deal. Because let's just say you come across the 6th probate property, right? And you don't know how to get the contracts locked up or get the deeds and where do we go? But then you get a 20-year in the business investor who's seen it all, been there, done that. Maybe not this situation, but partnering with the right high-level people out there can be a massive team-building effort and collaboration. Yeah,
that's cool, dude. One thing you mentioned, I want people to pick up on this. So Al had mentioned there that let's say there is that 5th kid who was going to inherit this house, and making sure that you guys take care of the process before the probate sticks, because you have the IRS lien in that example. And this, I'm not an attorney, so correct me if I'm wrong in this, Al, but because that one owner of the property after the whole probate's finished has an IRS lien, if they sell the property, I'm assuming then the IRS has to get paid first. Is that why you guys tackle that before it sticks and before the title's fully transferred to them?
Yeah, it could potentially kill the whole deal, the whole equity, because IRS is going to get paid. The thing to look out for, though, is when does that IRS lien expire, and potentially could it get reduced based on an appraisal? And that's another thing. working with specialists that focus on those kind of niche things could be huge. They can help maybe try to reduce it or work through tools to reduce those liens. I got a crazy one that we're looking at right now where Aaron, when the title moved to him, he got restitution liens of $1 million. And we're like, yeah, it's like, well, you can't quiet title that. Maybe we undo the probate and then figure out how to bypass him. What do we come up with? So those are crazy tools that you can use.
Guys, solving big problems in real estate. And that's what I want to kind of leave this with y'all is if you're an investor, if you're an agent and you're driving around town and you see those houses that have been there for years potentially, and they're just rotting away, right? The big long grass or the shutters and everything's just messy. And there's the moss and grass growing on the roofs like that. You'll see some of that around here in Oregon. You probably will see a lot of that over there. But at the end of the day, guys, those types of properties have probably a pretty high chance that someone had passed away and there's a complicated situation that has led to no one taking possession of that property and selling it, right? And so I want you guys to remember next time you're driving around town, if you see those, think, man, I wonder if that's a probate. And is there anyone that you can reach out to or, learn from Al, and we'll tell you guys where you can connect with them. Is there anyone you guys can reach out to go, man, I want to see if I can make this work. I want to see if I can get this house that's making the neighborhood look bad and dragging down everyone else's values and no one's solved this problem yet. I want to see if I can save this neighborhood and get this house elevated, right? And go through those processes. So Al knows how to do this. I've never done a probate deal. Tons of our customers have. Keith Sant will kind of end it with this. I want to toss over to you, Al. Keith Sant, one of our customers, he's told the story, and this is where I started on this podcast a couple times, where he does 1 to 2 probate deals a month, usually. And oftentimes they're very complicated ones that the other investors won't touch because there are no errors in these ones and no one's taking it over. And in Washington anyway, he can actually start the probate process and not be an error, but he has to go through the proper procedure, go through all these steps, and it's got to be posted publicly and do this and do that. And they have to prove that they made the attempts to reach out to any potential errors. And then after all this, then he can be the representative of that property. And then he takes it to court and the judge allows a sale, and then they accept offers, and then they sell the property. And oftentimes, obviously, he's the one that buys the property, then he resells it. So there's a lot of creative ways to do it, guys. And as long as you're willing to dive in and solve challenging problems, there's always going to be a job for you as an investor or an agent. There always will be. So Al, where can people, get more information from you, follow you, learn more about how to dive into probate and really make it effective?
Definitely, Trevor. So everybody can find me on Facebook under Al Nicoletti. I got my personal page, business page. You can find me on Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti. I'm just dropping reels and maybe one day TikToks too. Reels and posts and different things on the real estate probate world. And you can find my YouTube channel under Al Nicoletti. And I post all the videos, the walk and talks on the beach, the golf course, and my Al Nicoletti show. That's the studio, the podcast room I'm in now. Cool. And I'm on iTunes and Spotify. So you can find me. My phone number is 904-999-0053. The website, www.alnicoletti.com. And you can find everything there, how to contact me, my email address, all of that stuff.
I love it. Well, guys, hit reverse on that. Go to basically Google his name and you'll find him. He's everywhere. So Al, I appreciate you hopping on with me today. I love your energy, man. And I love the fact that you're using your skills and talents to go, you're an artist, right? You're a music artist, and you're using that art over on the real estate side to really solve these challenging problems. So thank you for what you do and the energy you bring, buddy. And I appreciate you hopping on. Any final parting words for the Carrot community?
Trevor, thank you so much. Thank you, Carrot, for having me on. I'm super humbled and honored to be on this podcast with you, get to meet with you. It's amazing. I would say if there was final words from me, a lot of investors, they overthink about how to get into the probate game. They want to know everything about it. They want to read the books and look up everything. And, I was on a call the other day, and they were going through all these things about paperwork and probate and this and that. And I thought at the end of the day, The big focus is the deal. How do you get the deal done? Who do you go to? Dive in the game, get your feet wet. It's going to be crazy. Expect the unexpected, and it's going to be huge. It's going to be fun. There's great deals out there, but really just dive in and see what happens, because it can be super profitable and an amazing hidden niche in real estate.
I love it. Well, Al, appreciate you, man. Guys, go Google Al Nicoletti, follow him, grab the resource on probate, dive in, do your first probate deal this year or do your next one next month. And everyone, go to YouTube, hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, see all of our videos, and make sure you're wherever you're listening to this on the podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Give us a rating and review over on Apple Podcasts. We're up well over 300 5-star reviews, and we would love to see you guys give us feedback on there. And like, what do you like about the podcast? Do you like the Trevor Truck Talks? Do you like these episodes? What topics do you want to hear about? And we will deliver. Al, have an amazing week. Carrot community, thank y'all. We'll talk soon.